Preparing for a RAG interview? You've reached Candy Mentor, and this video is for you. We'll walk through 10 key questions you're likely to face. For each one, you'll see what the interviewer is testing, the core concepts you should cover, and a sample answer. Subscribe, like, and share, and drop a topic request in the comments. Question 1. What is RAG, and why would you use it instead of relying only on a base LLM? The interviewer wants to assess your understanding of why Retrieval-Augmented Generation exists, how it differs from fine-tuning or standalone prompting, and whether you can explain its business value clearly. While answering, focus on the retrieval plus generation workflow, grounding on external data, reduced hallucination, current information, source citations, and why RAG is useful for enterprise knowledge and controlled responses. RAG, or Retrieval-Augmented Generation, combines a language model with a search layer over trusted content. I use it when the answer should depend on current, proprietary, or highly specific information. The retriever finds relevant passages, and the model uses those passages to generate a grounded response. Compared with a standalone LLM, RAG reduces hallucination, improves auditability, and avoids retraining every time source documents change in production. Question 2. Walk me through the main components of a production RAG pipeline. The interviewer is testing your understanding of end-to-end architecture, including document ingestion, chunking, embeddings, vector storage, retrieval, prompt construction, generation, and post-response monitoring in production systems. Make sure to cover each stage in order, explain what inputs and outputs move between components, and mention citations, logging, evaluation, and feedback loops as production requirements. I think of RAG as 5 moving parts: ingestion, indexing, retrieval, prompt assembly, and generation. First, documents are cleaned, chunked, and embedded into a vector store. At query time, the system retrieves the best chunks, optionally re-ranks them, then places them into the prompt with instructions. The LLM answers using that context, and the application returns citations, confidence signals, and logs for monitoring and review. Question 3. How would you decide the right chunking strategy for a RAG application? This question evaluates whether you understand that retrieval quality depends heavily on chunk design, document structure, overlap, metadata, and testing against realistic user question sets. In your answer, talk about semantic boundaries, token limits, section headings, overlap, parent-child retrieval, metadata enrichment, and the trade-off between enough context and too much noise. Chunking is where many RAG systems succeed or fail. I would choose chunks that preserve meaning, not just arbitrary token counts. For policy documents, I might chunk by section with headings and overlap, so definitions and exceptions travel together. If chunks are too small, retrieval loses context. Too large, noise enters the prompt. I would test chunk size against real questions and citation accuracy before deployment. Question 4. What role do embeddings play in RAG, and how would you evaluate whether they are working well? The interviewer wants to assess your grasp of embeddings as the semantic search foundation of RAG, including vector similarity, model selection, domain language, and validation. Be sure to mention how text becomes vectors, how queries are compared with stored chunks, why domain-specific terminology matters, and how you would test retrieval quality. Embeddings turn text into vectors that capture semantic meaning, so similar ideas sit close together mathematically. In RAG, I embed document chunks and the user query, then retrieve chunks with high similarity scores. The model choice matters because finance terms, acronyms, and domain language can be subtle. I would validate embeddings with representative queries, not just assume a high benchmark score transfers to my use case. Question 5. When would you use dense retrieval, keyword search, hybrid retrieval, or reranking in a RAG system? The interviewer is testing your ability to choose retrieval methods pragmatically, not theoretically. especially when exact identifiers, synonyms, acronyms, and long-tail enterprise questions coexist daily. While answering, compare semantic vector search with keyword search. Explain hybrid retrieval, discuss re-ranking, and show how retrieval choices affect precision, recall, and final answer quality. Dense retrieval is strong when the question and document use different wording but share meaning. Keyword or BM25 retrieval is better for exact terms like account codes, ISINs, policy IDs, or regulation names. In practice, I like hybrid retrieval because it captures both semantic and lexical relevance. Then I use re-ranking to reorder candidates, improving precision before the LLM sees the context and answers the user. Question 6. How would you reduce hallucinations in a RAG-based application? This question evaluates your understanding of hallucination controls, including prompt constraints, retrieval quality, citations, insufficient evidence behavior, automated checks, and human review for high-risk answer scenarios. Make sure to cover both prevention and detection, better retrieved context, explicit instructions, answer refusal, source citations, claim verification, evaluation datasets, and production monitoring workflows. I reduce hallucination by controlling what the model is allowed to use. The prompt should instruct it to answer only from retrieved context, cite sources, and say when evidence is insufficient. On the retrieval side, I improve chunk quality, add metadata filters, and re-rank results. Finally, I monitor unsupported claims through human review and automated checks against source passages before promoting changes to production widely. Question 7. What metrics would you use to evaluate a RAG system? The interviewer wants to assess whether you can measure a RAG system rigorously rather than relying on demos, including retrieval metrics, answer quality, and regression testing. In your answer, separate retrieval evaluation from generation evaluation. Mention golden question sets, ground truth answers, citation correctness, user feedback, and tracking changes after model or index updates. I separate retrieval evaluation from answer evaluation. For retrieval, I look at recall at K, precision, mean reciprocal rank, and whether the cited chunk contains the answer. For generation, I test groundedness, completeness, correctness, and citation quality. I would build a golden question set from real users, include edge cases, and track regressions after changes to chunking, embeddings, prompts, or models in production releases cycles. Question 8. How would you handle security and access control in an enterprise RAG system? The interviewer is testing your awareness of enterprise deployment risks, especially permission-aware retrieval, confidential data handling, auditability, prompt injection, and compliance requirements in regulated environments. Be sure to mention access controls before retrieval, metadata filtering, encryption, audit logs, data retention, redaction, tenant isolation, and testing for leakage across users or departments. In an enterprise RAG system, security is not an add-on. It drives the design. Retrieval must respect user permissions, document classifications, and data residency rules. I would apply metadata filters before retrieval, not after generation, so restricted chunks never reach the prompt. I would also encrypt data, log access, mask sensitive fields where appropriate, and test for prompt injection or cross-user leakage risks continuously in production. Question 9. A RAG application is accurate but too slow and expensive. How would you optimize it? This question evaluates whether you can operate RAG at scale, balancing latency, cost, model choice, prompt-like caching, re-ranking, and quality under real usage patterns. While answering, focus on profiling bottlenecks, reducing context size, caching, choosing efficient models, tuning top K, batching where possible, and validating that optimizations do not degrade accuracy. I would first profile where time is spent, embedding, vector search, re-ranking, prompt size, or model generation. Common fixes include caching frequent queries, using smaller re-rankers, limiting top K, compressing context, and streaming responses. For cost, prompt length is usually a big lever. The key is not just making it faster, but preserving answer quality and source coverage under realistic user demand and service level targets in production. Question 10. A RAG system gives a wrong answer because it used an outdated policy document. How would you debug and fix it? The interviewer wants to assess your debugging discipline when a RAG answer is wrong, including tracing retrieved evidence, version control, metadata, ranking, prompts, and evaluation gaps. In your answer, talk about checking retrieved chunks first, validating document freshness and permissions, inspecting re-ranker behavior, updating metadata filters, and adding regression tests for similar failures. I would treat it as a retrieval and governance problem before blaming the LLM. First, inspect the retrieved chunks. Did it pull the old policy, miss metadata, or rank a weaker passage higher? Then check document versioning, effective dates, permissions, and prompt instructions. The fix may be metadata filtering for active documents, stronger re-ranking, deprecating stale chunks, and evaluation tests for conflicting source questions before release. If you are still with us, congratulations! You are much ahead of the rest and serious about preparing for your interview. We hope we were able to add value to your preparation and create some helpful content. Do not forget to like and share this video. Your small act can do great things for us.